Hello everybody, this is Stephen Holmes coming to you from Education W200, and today we are going to talk about some responses to Frontline's Digital Nation video. Okay, so awesome. So, like a lot of people, I had a few thoughts on this particular, whatever you call it, newscast. PBS program. Let's call it that. It's a PBS program documentary. Documentary, there's the word. Obviously, I'm sort of young, from the millennial generation, kind of a part of that generation that grew up with the internet, right? We understand that a lot better than maybe older people. I don't want to say older people, older like 30s, 40s, people who went to school and learned one way, and now the internet is completely like changing our society. And that might be a little bit scary for them. Rest assured, here I am, a millennial. I'm going to explain to you why we don't have to be worried about all of that. Number one thing I wanted to talk about, 15 minutes into the video, specifically at 14:25, they were showing particular brain scans, and they were showing a person's brain from whenever they're reading as compared to whenever they're doing a Google search. And whenever they looked at the two comparative scans, they saw that there was less brain activity in somebody who was reading than in somebody who was doing a Google search. This just baffled people's minds, and they're like, well, how can there possibly be more brain activity going on while doing a Google search and less while reading? And the doctor says, well, sometimes less is more. Even though, there's less brain activity here with the person who's reading, it might actually be good because they don't have to use more of their brain in order to do that. But from what I know from educational psychology, the more of your brain that you're using, the more your brain is going to go through the synaptic pruning process. Basically, the more gray matter you're going to get. Basically, it's a use it or lose it. Now, that doesn't answer the question, though. Why is there less being involved in reading than in a Google search? Well, in a Google search, you have to do a lot of things. You have to be looking at the screen. You have to be searching for relevant terms. You have to be changing your relevant terms in order to find specific information. Whatever the case, a Google search has a lot more involved than I think what we often give it credit for. And people just look at the data that we have and say, oh, well, even though there's less brain activity going on in the person who's reading a book than there is doing a Google search, so we're going to say less is more because that just doesn't fit with our original hypothesis. No, the fact of the matter is that, yeah, for a lot of people, at least according to your data, there are more people who are using more of their brain in Google searches than reading. That's not a bad thing. That just shows how complex our apparently simple technology really is. Moving on. Internet addiction. We all know somebody like this. Somebody who maybe gets too engaged with those online games, League of Legends, World of Warcraft. I'm not saying if you play these games that you're a bad person or that you're like a nerd or anything. Like, I'm kind of a nerd too, if you guys haven't figured that out. But when it comes down to it, for the people who just for hours on end just play these games, and I personally don't understand it. I don't understand how people can do that. That's not my jam. Personally, that's not my jam. But some people do it so much to the effect that it's an addiction for them. I loved how South Korea, their government got right onto this technology bandwagon when it first came about, and they wanted to have the doctors do like a 3-year longitudinal study, and they concluded that internet addiction was comparable to other addictions, like addictions to drugs. These are real psychological addictions that can be treated, and I think that really is the case. One South Korean boy, and he's at home with his mother, and he's like not talking to her, and he just seems kind of glossed over look. And, the only thing he seems to be interested in is going back onto the computer to play his internet games. There's nothing wrong with, spending some time on the internet, but you got to use it responsibly. That's also why I like how the South Korean school children from elementary school, they're taught to use the internet, but they're taught digital citizenship. They're taught how to use it in a responsible way. It's very, very important that we treat internet addiction just like any other psychiatric addiction. Number 3, using technology to change warfare. Something that's very interesting is the piloting of unmanned drones. Honestly, I think that this is a very, very interesting revolution in military technology. We're not putting American soldiers' lives at risk. I mean, they're flying the drone in Iraq or Afghanistan, but from like home in like Nevada. But at the same time, they also have to keep in mind that while they physically might not be there, they're piloting a weapon of destruction that is there, and so they need to take care to make sure that they don't have so much collateral damage. We can't always know for certain if there are innocent people in these areas, and we can't always know if our targets are in there either, which makes it very difficult. Now, if all these countries were to like build up all these like robots to like fight our wars for us, that would be kind of cool. I mean, wouldn't it be kind of cool if all of our wars were really just a bunch of nerds getting together and like doing like battle bots? Like, and our battle bots beat yours, so there you go, war over, we win, right? So whenever this technology is used against civilians, that we begin to have a problem. For me, personally, that's what I feel. So, those are my 3 things. The less is more argument. I don't really buy it. I think technology, especially simple technology like Google searches, actually employ a lot more parts of the brain than what we would think. Like, I'm not saying that reading isn't good for you, but just saying that, hey, we can't downplay the data. We can't downplay the evidence. The fact of the matter is that using technology does affect the brain in very positive ways. But at the same time, as we see in part 2, if you're addicted to the internet, addicted to gaming, and addicted to anything, if you're just addicted to it so much, it can begin to have negative effects too. So we have to be wary of that and treat it as a psychiatric disorder. And then number 3, sort of on a more unrelated note, with the use of drones in the military, personally, I'm all in favor of taking the human risk out of war, and I think that this is a step towards that. It's obviously not perfect, because unfortunately we do have innocent people being killed by unmanned military airstrikes, but I do feel that we are on the right track when it comes to that. So with that said, technology is a good thing, and yes, it's going to reshape culture, as they said, and we are going to lose some things. But every culture goes through that. Every culture goes through some kind of revolution where we lose some things that we used to have, but we lose them because they're no longer needed. For our generation, maybe it's not as important to know facts and know information as it is important to know how to look up facts and how to look up good, accurate information. The internet is like the entire wealth of human history and knowledge at our fingertips. And if we're taught how to access that, then there is really no point to memorizing a bunch of otherwise useless facts. We can free up our minds for other things. So yes, technology is going to evolve our society and evolve us in such a way that, yes, we are going to lose some things, but it's not a bad thing, because we're going to gain a lot too. Those are my thoughts on technology. If you have any other different comments, anything to add, any points you wanna bring up with me, go ahead and leave them down in the comments below. Until then, Stephen Holmes signing off.